Tonight we chant teaching on the Noble Eightfold Path, page 91 in Book 1.
Abstaining from idle chatter, I Here bhikkhus, a noble disciple, having abandoned wrong livelihood, earns his living by right livelihood. Ayam Buchalti Bhikkhave Sambhavajivo. This bhikkhus is called right livelihood. Katamo cha Bhikkhave Sambhavayamo. And what bhikkhus is right effort? Ita Bhikkhave Bhikkhu Anupananam Papakanam Akusalanam Dhammanam Anupadaya. Here bhikkhus, a bhikkhu awakens zeal for the non-arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome states. Chandam janeti vayamati viryam parahati chitam paganhati padahati. He puts forth effort, arouses energy, exerts his mind and strives. Upananam papakanam akusalanam dhammanam pahanaya. He awakens zeal for the abandoning of arisen, evil, unwholesome states. Chandam janeti vayamati viryam parabhati chitam paganhati padahati. He puts forth effort, arouses energy, exerts his mind and strives. Anupananam kusalanam dhammanam upadaya. He awakens zeal for the arising of arisen, wholesome states. Chandam janeti vayamati viryam parabhati chitam paganhati padahati. He puts forth effort, arouses energy, exerts his mind and strives. Upananam kusalanam dhammanam kiriya asamosaya iyo bhavaya dvaipulaya bhavanaya paripurya. He awakens zeal for the continuance, non-disappearance, strengthening, increase and fulfillment by development of arisen wholesome states. Chandam janeti vayamati viryam parabhati chitam paganhati padahati. He puts forth effort, arouses energy, exerts his mind and strives. Ayam Buchalti Bhikkhave Sambhavayamo. This bhikkhus is called right effort. Katama cha Bhikkhave Sammasati. And what bhikkhus is right mindfulness? Ita Bhikkhave Bhikkhu Kaye Kayanupasi Viharati. Here bhikkhus, a bhikkhu abides, contemplating the body as a body. Atavi sambhajano satima. Ardent, fully aware and mindful. Vineya lokeya bijado manasam. Having put away covetousness and grief for the world. Vedana suvedana nupasi viharati. He abides contemplating feelings as feelings. Atapi sambhajano satima. Ardent, fully aware and mindful. Vineya lokeya bijado manasam. Having put away covetousness and grief for the world. Chitte chitanupasi viharati. He abides contemplating mind as mind. Atapi sambhajano satima. Ardent, fully aware and fully aware and mindful. Vinaya loke abhija domanasam. Having put away covetousness and grief for the world, ayam uchati bhikkhave sammasati. This because is called right mindfulness. Atamo cha bhikkhave samma samadhi. And what because is right concentration. Ida bhikkhave bhikkhu. Here because of bhikkhu. Viviceva kamehi, quite secluded from sensual pleasures. Vivicha sadehi kammehi, secluded from unwholesome states. Savitakam savicharam vivekajam viti sukham patamam janam upasam aja viharati. Enters upon and abides in the first jhana, accompanied by applied and sustained thought, with rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. Vitaka vicharanam upasama, with the stilling of applied and sustained thought. Ajatam sampasadanam chetaso eko bhavam avitakam avicharam samadhijam piti sukham yutiyam jhana upasam aja viharati. He enters upon and abides in the second jhana, accompanied by self-confidence and singleness of mind, without applied and sustained thought, with rapture and pleasure born of concentration. Vidya chaviraga, with the fading away as well of rapture. Ubeka chaviharati, he abides in equanimity. Sadhoja sampajano, mindful and fully aware. Sukhancha kayena pavisamvedeti, still feeling pleasure with the body. Yantam variya atikanti ubekako satima sukha viharati. Tatiyam jhanam upasampaja viharati. He enters upon and abides in the third jhana, on account of which the noble ones announce, he has a pleasant abiding, with equanimity and is mindful. Sukha sajapahana, with the abandoning of pleasure. Dukkha sajapahana, and the abandoning of pain. Ubeva somana sadomana sana atangama, with the previous disappearance of joy and grief. Adukam asukam ukeka sati parisuddhim chadukam jhanam upasampaja viharati. He enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana, accompanied by neither pain nor pleasure, and purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. Ayam uchati bhikkhave samma samadhi. This because is called right concentration. Ayam eva ariyo atangiko mago. This is the
take a short break and come back for the novice ordination. So this evening we've got a Pabbaja, Samanera ordination, and that'll be the bulk of what's happening this evening, and it'll include a few short talks, reflections during the ceremony, and then we'll just see where it takes us. So please, I'll invite Anagarika Ty to begin. Pick up the robes and put them on the left side. Back up a little bit so your feet are off there.
Okasa vandami bante sabbanga paradang kamatame bante maya katang punyang sammina anumoditambang sammina katang punyang mayhang dattambang sadhu sadhu anumodami. Okasa karunyang katwa pabbajang detame bante.
So is that in Pali is asking for the going forth. Please accept these robes out of compassion that I can undertake the going forth. And so there's a jiwan, sabong, angsa, sitting cloth, and belt here, and so on, and a sash, which will be tied around. So I'm just, this part of the ceremony is just, he briefly offers the robes to me, and I'm checking them just to make sure everything there is there, and it is. So I have those back.
Ahang bante pabbajang yachami dutiyam piyahang bante pabbajang yachami tatiyam piyahang bante pabbajang yachami sabbadukhani sarana nibbana satchikarinataya imang kasavang gahitva pabbajithamang bante anukampang upadaya sabbadukhani sarana nibbana satchikarinataya imang kasavang gahitva pabbajithamang bante anukampang upadaya sabbadukhani sarana nibbana satchikarinataya imang kasavang gahitva pabbajithamang bante anukampang upadaya. Sabbadukhani sarana nibbana satchikarinataya etang kasavang datva pabbajithamang bante anukampang upadaya sabbadukhani sarana nibbana satchikarinataya etang kasavang datva pabbajithamang bante anukampang upadaya sabbadukhani sarana nibbana satchikarinataya etang kasavang datva pabbajithamang bante anukampang upadaya.
So this first part of the ceremony, the requesting of going forth. So the translation of what you just chanted, Sabba Dukkha Nitsarana Nibbana Sachikarnataya, and so on, to cross over all dukkha in order to realize Nibbana. Taking these robes, please, Venerable Sir, out of compassion, grant me the going forth. So that was the first chant done 3 times. It's like he's holding the robes and please, have with these robes, grant me the going forth. And then he hands them to me and then chants the same chant again, except instead of gahetwa, it's datwa, which is having taken these robes, Venerable Sir, please grant me the going forth. And so with these robes, I'll remove the angsa and the sitting cloth. There. And what we call the mula kammatthana and the dasasikapada, the root kammatthana or the root meditation objects, what we call the kesaloma nakadanta tacho, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. And this ceremony, it's very interesting that the Buddha has novices in the going forth undertake these 5 meditation objects, because it just seems very ordinary, and yet contemplating these things are what leads to Nibbana, leads to crossing over all dukkha, and that these ordinary things, these 5 things, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin, that contemplating these we can actually attain enlightenment through these very ordinary things. These are also the 5 things that are visible on a human body, so we can take this contemplation further and go inwards, and the kidneys, heart, liver, and so on, and the 32 body parts. But these first 5 are actually what's visible. So it's like offering these robes, and then we, as a contemplation, we contemplate these 5 meditation themes, and that these are what people in the world are enamored by. And just like we did in our chanting this morning, the 10 subjects for frequent recollection by one who has gone forth. I am no longer living according to worldly aims and values that should be reflected upon again and again by one who's gone forth. It's actually taking these 5 things and saying, oh yeah, I'm no longer going to make the sole purpose of my life to be infatuated with these things, which is what most of us are doing in the world. So, and overcoming that infatuation, that helps us to, that is what crosses over the flood of craving, and we can attain Nibbana. This is possible. And so actually taking these robes and wrapping the robes around these 5 things, it's a perpetual contemplation that we're actually doing with this. So, and then you'll be undertaking the 10 precepts as well, so you're familiar with the 8 precepts. The 10 precepts is essentially taking that 7th precept, the refraining from entertainment, beautification, and adornment, and for some profound reason, I'm not quite sure why, it's split into 2. It's entertainment and then beautification and adornment. And then the precept that's added on is the Jata Rupa Rajatapa Dikahana, the refraining from money, accepting and using money. So the giving up of one's assets, which I believe you did yesterday. Yeah, you did that yesterday. Closing the old bank account and getting rid of the money. So that's a big deal. And then you, as a Pabaja, as one gone forth, you then become dependent on Sanghapala Foundation for your support in the brown robe. So that's a big change, that's a big shift. And any of those precepts as a novice, just as the Anagarika time, if a precept is broken, these aren't commandments, but they're training guidelines. So if a precept is broken, to let me or one of the other senior monks know as soon as possible, and we talk about it, and then rectify the situation. So what I'll do now is I'll have you come back onto your haunches, and I will hand you these robes, and then while you're holding those robes, if you could repeat after me these 5 kammatthana, the mula kammatthana. Kesa,
Kesa,
loma,
Loma,
nakha,
Naka,
danta,
Danta,
tacho,
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 danta,
Danta,
nakha,
Naka,
loma,
Loma,
kesa.
Kesa.
And if you could set those to the side and come forward. This is something Luangpur Liam does during the pabajas that he does, is he puts the yangsa on you, which I really like. So I'll do that. And put your right arm through there. Okay, so you can and take those robes and go and put them on. You'll be helped by skilled, advanced robe wearers to put those on. Come back. So, Anagarika Ty, having spent over a year in the whites, he's now finally going into brown, and this is something that's quite wonderful, and I think it was Ajahn Amaro who used to say that you have to become baked or cooked. Once you're cooked, then you become brown.
Tofu.
Tofu.
Start out pale and properly baked.
Get properly baked, and then you're ready to go into brown. Once you've cooked in the monastery long enough. And for some of us, also the whites literally become brown. You get the whites having it; they're kind of hard to look after sometimes, and they get dusty, and sometimes they get stained, and they literally become brown. Anagarika Ty has done a pretty good job of looking after his whites and keeping them shiny and white. I remember one time somebody had done a load of laundry, and they had some dye in there, it was a load of browns that had been dyed recently, and then I did a load of whites right afterwards, and a lot of my whites turned light yellow after that load of laundry. Also, I remember being in Anagarika, and Luangpur Pasano's upatak, his attendant, and carrying the robes and getting the dye kind of rubbing off on as we used to back in the old days, before we had DVs and EVs, we walked up the hill every night, and carried our Ajahns' robes up. That was part of the attendance duties, was to carry the robes up. So I was ultra keen on being an Upatak, so I was allowed to be Longpa Pasano's Upatak in the early days, even though I was an Anagarika. And yeah, taking those robes up every day, and kind of my right side became yellow from the robes rubbing against the whites every night. And here at Abhayagiri, everybody does the 1 year as an Anagarika, 1 year as a novice before ordaining as bhikkhus. So a lot of places in Thailand. This is something that Luang Por did at Wat Nong Papong, and I think it's quite good. He said that if you ordain people quick, they disrobe quick. But if you make them wait for a long time, they stay ordained for a long time. So very much seems to be the case. And putting the robe on for the first time too, it's just a big rectangle, and we roll it, and so those muscles, doing some robe rolling practice with Anagarika Ty, you can see those hand muscles aren't developed yet. So we have special hand robe rolling muscles that need to get developed, and those muscles weren't yet developed in his hands, so the roll can take quite some time to actually roll up, but he will develop those over time. And he was making the comment, your hands must have some really interesting muscular asymmetries in them based on rolling those robes every day. Because I don't even think about it now, it's just like roll the robe. But then I was kind of looking at how I do it, and oh yeah, I kind of like take these fingers and kind of go like that, and kind of roll it up. And he was trying to do the same thing, and it's kind of like, what do I do? So the Buddha actually has bhikkhus that stay, he says the nisaya, the period of dependence, 5 years as a bhikkhu. And I did find that that's about how long it takes to develop those muscles, get used to wearing the robe. And then as you're bowing, this roll keeps slipping off. And so for this ceremony, he'll have a sash. We also do that for the bhikkhu ordination. We'll have a sash actually tied around, and possibly even a safety pin to hold it up in place. Some quite big practical changes when the papaja takes place as well. He'll be using an alms bowl for the first time, and rather than just the Anagarika bowl, and the whole world of alms round opens up to one, so he'll be able to do the alms round, Ukiah, Redwood Valley, Fry Vineyards. So it's whole new world of experience that one goes into. Although it's not quite the same as bhikkhu ordination in terms of, one, you don't have the 227 precepts, but then also things don't need to be offered. So Samanera Ty will still be able to offer things to bhikkhus and still have like breakfast, tea time, with the lay people and Anagarikas. So there's still that separation because things don't need to be offered yet. But yeah, still quite a big change. Not using money, just separating oneself from the whole money realm. He'll get a new name as well. That's a big change. Of course, here we do go by our Pali names. I know, like in Thailand, though, it really depends on the place. Like Ajahn Cha, of course, his given name, his Pali name was Subado. Ajahn Cha, Ajahn Mun, Boridato. So they go by more their birth names. But here we undertake the practice of going by our new names. It can have a good effect on the mind in terms of letting go of our identity and going into the practice in a deeper way. But for parents, up to your comfort, whatever name you use. And I know my parents still just call me by my original name when they're talking in rapid conversation. Then that's the conditioning. My own name doesn't have such a good meaning in Thai, so I'm happy to go by my Pali name. It's the name Leaf becomes, they don't have an F at the end in Thai, so an F becomes P, so it becomes Leap, which means to shrivel. As in Tanaja Mahabua would say that Ajahn Mun would give a spicy Dhamma talk that would make it dup leap, like a liver shriveling discourse. So, probably after about 6 months, it won't take quite this long for him to Put his robes on. Have a nice line of safety pins.
Do you give him the bowl during the ceremony?
No, I don't think we've done that here, but the bowl is just given by the store's monk, and he does have it with him. But I don't think we've ever pulled it out for the ceremony here. Do you do that at Amaravati? Have the
Yeah, and they come in with their robes.
with their robes and bowl?
I think, or maybe one of the sponsors gives them the bowl before they take the Nisaya.
Oh, okay. A good way of doing it.
It's a bit more coming and going. So they do the 10 precepts first, and then they receive the bowl from the sponsor, and then they come up and take the Nisaya at the end.
Oh, all right.
There we go.
Okay. And, now, Samanera Ty will be requesting and taking the 10 precepts.
Okasandami bante Sabbanga paradang kamatame bante Maya katang punyang sammina anumoditatmang Sammina katang punyang mayang dattamang Sadhu, sadhu, anumodani Okasa karunyang katwa Tisarane nasaha sila nidetame bante Ahang bante saranasilang yachami Dutiyam piyahang bante saranasilang yachami Tutiyam piyahang bante saranasilang yachami.
Let's get this a little bit more in the center. There we go. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa.
Yamahang vadami tang vadehi.
Okassa amma bhante.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Di sarana kamanang nititang.
O kasama bhante.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Abrahmacharya veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Abrahmacharya veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Musawada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Musavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Surameraya macha pamadatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Suramaraya Majapamandatana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Vikala bhojana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Vikala bhojana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Nacha gita varita visukhadasana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Nacha gita vadita visukhadasana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Mala gandha vilepana dharana mandana vibhusanatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Mala gandha vilepana dharana mandana vibhusanatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Uchasayana mahasayana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Uchasayana mahasayana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Jata rupa rajatapatikahana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Jata rupa rajata patigahana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Imani dasa sikkhapadani samadhiyami.
O kasama bhante. Imani dasa sikkhapadani samadhiyami. Imani dasa sikkhapadani samadhiyami. Imani dasa sikkhapadani samadhiyami.
Okay, at this point I'll give some more brief instruction. Welcome to years of trying to keep that robe on, and you'll get better at it once you develop those muscular asymmetries you were referring to the other day. Then and you got your robe and bowl, so you'll be able to train in the Pindabat and go into that mode. So I'm sure you're keen and looking forward to it. And so and then with perseverance, you will learn those things over time and train with these 10 precepts. The next part of the ceremony is the Nisaya, or the taking of dependence. And even though formally you'll be taking dependence on myself, really you're depending on all the senior monks in the community, taking dependence on the Sangha, so people are going to be helping you out with various aspects of novice life, and so certain things you'll be able to do that the bhikkhus can't do, like you'll still be able to cut plants, dig in the earth. Those are things that you can still do. You don't need things formally offered to you as a novice. You can offer things to bhikkhus still. So there's these practicalities. Yet you will be training with the Sakyas and eating out of your alms bowl. So it'll be a new realm of experience. So that's very good. And I won't go on for too long with this because I also will invite after you take the Nisaya and complete the ordination, there was going to invite Ajahn Amaro to also give some reflections on Pabaja, and then after that we will be formally taking leave of Ajahn Amaro. This is his last full day here. But at this, so you can come up onto your haunches and go into the Nisaya.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Acharyo me bhante hohi ayasamato nisaya vachami. Acharyo me bhante hohi ayasamato nisaya vachami. Acharyo me bhante hohi ayasamato nisaya vachami.
O paikang
Sadhu bhante.
patirupang
Sadhu bhante.
pasadikena sampadehi
Sadhu bhante. Ajatagedani tero maihang baro aham pitera sabaro. Ajatagedani tero maihang baro aham pitera sabaro. Ajatagedani tero maihang baro aham pitera sabaro.
All right, the fated moment, your name, you may open it.
Ubhasi.
Your name is Obasi, Radiant Splendor. So that's a 3-syllable name, short, easy to remember, Obasi. It kind of made me think of like Obi-Wan Kenobi when I first heard it. So it's a very spiritual sounding name.
I'm honored.
Obasi. And at this time, you can, if you can take your, you may take those trays and you can formally pay respects to Lumpur Pasano and Ajahn Amaro, and then go back to your seat, and then I'll invite Ajahn Amaro to give some reflections. Yeah.
Novice in Germany, whose name is Yodako.
Yodako. Oh wow. All right.
Similar motivation.
Some
One of Chatamala and Ajahn Metika's disciples.
Yeah, get those Star Wars Jedi perceptions going. Samanera Obasi's brother is here, so helping out with the ordination, helping bring the trays forward.
How are we doing for time?
45, maybe 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. One of the most significant parts of the pabbajja, the going forth, it's repeated a few times in the earlier part of the ceremony, is this little phrase, Sabba dukkha nisarana nibbana sachikaranattaya. So it's a way of expressing the purpose, the intention of the whole ceremony, the whole commitment to the 10 precepts, the novice training. Sabba dukkha nisarana, to let go, to transcend all dukkha, all dissatisfaction, all discontent. Nibbana sachikaranattaya, in order to realize nibbana, in order to arrive at true peace, to realize true and complete peace. That's the purpose of the whole thing. Though I've led a few pabbajja ceremonies, bhikkhu ordinations over the years, and I find myself emphasizing over and over again, it's really good to remember that's what it's all for, because along the way, when you're struggling with your robes, when you're struggling with keeping the precepts, when you're struggling with some particular work task that you've been asked to look after, or difficult relationships with somebody else in the community, or whatever it might be, that it's easy to forget that the whole thing is about letting go of suffering, because it can seem like what you're doing, what you're involved in, is creating more suffering. The way the mind gets caught up and stresses, frets about the different relationships we have, or the tasks that we do, the things that we take on. And so that I find just to clearly and consciously recollect the whole thing is about ending suffering. That's why we are here. That's why we all came through the gate. That's why we've all undertaken to live at a place like Abhayagiri Monastery, and those of us who have gone forth, this is the reason why we've shaved our heads and we put on these robes every day, and we commit ourselves to this way of life, is to end suffering, not to increase it. And so I feel that's very helpful to bear in mind. So I don't know Venerable Samanera Obasi very well, and he spent these few days in his company, but I sincerely hope that he'll take these words of the ceremony, not just as bits of Pali to memorize to get through the ceremony, but to take that as the kind of abiding principle. The whole point of all of this, shaving the head, wearing the robes, learning how to keep the robes on, even after 40 years they still insist on dropping off. To recollect, the whole thing is about ending dukkha, the whole thing is about realizing nibbana. And it's not also just as an end goal, but if we have a skillful attitude, then the carrying out of the practice, the effort that is made in day-to-day tasks, in the meditation, in the mind training that we undertake, that we engage in, that we can work, we can engage with a peaceful heart. Peace doesn't just come when the work stops, when the effort is not being so employed, but rather peace is if the mind has a skillful attitude, peace is ever present, even as work is going on, even as you're climbing up the hill, or even as you're putting more logs on the burn pile, even as you're spending hours and hours trying to stay awake in the meditation. The peace is ever present, even as work is being carried out. If we have a skillful attitude, if there's that, the heart is fixed upon non-grasping, non-contention, and is inclining towards wakefulness. So I feel that is a very helpful advice, very important for us. And then it's one of the reasons that one of the ways that we can make the holy life really enjoyable, really something that is a delight, and not just a chore or something that we turn into another stressful burden, a thing I've got to do or I should be doing, but rather it's something that is like a natural expression of the pure heart. There's an enjoyment in living together, carrying out the various duties and activities of the monastery life. Sabba dukkha nisarana. Just to recollect, the whole thing is about ending dukkha. So it's easy for us to get distracted, and as we get caught into that stressing mode, just to remember that, to bring that to mind. And then even as the work is carrying on, we're still engaging in that particular task or that particular activity. Often it's just enough to remember, oh, this is all about ending suffering, not about increasing it. Then the grip loosens. There's a relaxing. And so Luang Por used to often talk about, this is really the essence of Dhamma practice, is to, we need to pick things up, we need to take hold of things, we need to engage. So we pick things up, like this packet of black oak coffee. So when we hold it, and then when it's time to, when we need to hold it, we hold it. When it's time to put it down, then we put it down, we let it go. So the practice is not about never holding anything, never picking anything up. Peace doesn't come from never engaging, but rather when we pick things up, then when we need to pick them up, we pick them up. When we need to put them down, we put them down. And so that way of, say, being ready to engage with sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, with community life, with the work that needs to be done to look after the monastery, then we pick it up, but we pick it up without grasping, without I should, I've got to, I must, or without that sense of tension, that stressing in the heart, because it's really that quality of grasping, of clinging. That's the troublemaker. That's where the dukkha really gets hatched, where that difficulty and discord, discontent gets born, is in the attitude of grasping. In one of the teachings, the Buddha said, when he was asked to summarize, to say, express Dhamma in a succinct way. He said the 4 words, Sabbe Dhamma Nalang Abhinivesaya. Sabbe Dhamma, all things. Nalang should not Abhinivesaya, be clung to or grasped at. Don't cling to anything. He said, if you've heard this, you've heard everything. If you've understood this, you've understood everything. If you remember this, you've remembered everything. If you fully realize this, you've fully realized everything. So Ajahn Buddhadasa was fond of saying, so the whole of the Tipitaka, the whole of the Buddha's teaching, is really contained just in those 4 words. Don't cling to anything. Sabbe Dhamma Nalang Abhinivesaya. So if we really take that to heart, then when we find ourselves clinging and grasping, getting caught up in like and dislike and a sense of being over keen or over opinionated or over anxious, whatever it might be, then to notice that clinging, that grasping, and to relax the grip, to soften the grip, and then we find that we are able to hold and then to put things down when we need to put them down. Going forth, the Pabbajja is going forth from the household life. It's going forth into the life of a samana, living on alms, as Ajahn Amaro was describing that 10 subjects for frequent recollection by one who has gone forth. I'm no longer living according to worldly aims and values. My very life is sustained by the gifts of others. So Venerable Obasi has now given up his money yesterday and is living on alms, living on the goodwill and generosity of others, and so that's a going forth from worldly dependency. But you're also going forth in one way, but you're also going into the sangha. You're going into the community. Sangha means the unified assembly, the harmonious, the integrated assembly. So stepping in one way, going into the brown robes, taking on the 10 precepts, is leaving that sort of the reliance on worldly possessions and money and control over worldly things, leaving that behind. That's going forth from that, but going forth into the spiritual community. And there's many ways that the Buddha's teaching points to spiritual friendship, spiritual community as of being prime importance. There's a famous teaching he gave to Venerable Ananda when Venerable Ananda said, spiritual friendship, kalyana mitta, is half of the holy life. The Buddha said, not so, Ananda. It's not half the holy life. It's the whole of the holy life. And I am quite candid about saying how, without minions, without people that I've been blessed to live with and practice with for many years, I don't think I would have had a prayer really in spiritual practice. I would have gone down either in flames or sunk without a trace a long time ago. But it's people like Lumpur Pasanno and Ajahn Krunadhammo, been here at Apayagiri for a long time. Also way back when in my early years in Thailand and then in England, without the great blessing of good-hearted and dedicated spiritual companions, I wouldn't have had a hope. I'm not just saying that, but I really would not have had the strength or the resources or the focus to stay with the spiritual practice without the inspiration and support and friendship of kalyana mitta. So that I feel going forth, the Pabbajja is recognizing that that's an entering into a committed spiritual group, a collection of kalyana mitta, spiritual friends. The first verse, Lumpur Pasanno was quoting from the Mangala Sutta a few days ago. The very first verse, asevana chabalanang panditanang cha sevana, not to associate with fools, but to associate with the wise. This is the highest blessing. First verse, this is where it begins. Choose who you spend your time with. If you spend your time with foolish people, then it's going to have an effect. If you choose to spend your time with wise people, with good-hearted people, it's going to have an effect. So first on the list of the blessings, the highest blessings, draw close to good people. So I feel that it's important to recognize and to consider and to appreciate, to be glad of that opportunity, to be grateful for the opportunity to live with like-minded people, to provide that kind of spiritual support, and that it's not a small thing. It's the Buddha praised the harmony in the Sangha and the power of Sangha as being of the greatest significance. Luang Por Chah's focus of his method of practice and training was very much around developing the quality of Sangha and using Sangha and living in community as a spiritual training. It's not just a sort of a kind of an accident or just a sort of a circumstance of, the real practice is all about you meditating by yourself, and I guess you have to live with these other people, but really the real practice is just about you. Luang Por Chah, I would say that Luang Por Chah's approach was, yes, we do need to work on our own minds, and the field of training is very much focused on dealing with our own habits of greed, hatred and delusion. But we learn so much, we are benefited so much, and we are able to benefit others so much by living in community. And so he developed that communal living, community consciousness, and the abrasions, the friction that comes from living together with other people, very consciously as a method of training, a method of practice. So it's not just a kind of circumstance of spiritual training or something that's a kind of artifact, or like, yes, you'll live with a few other people, but don't worry too much about that. The real thing is practicing by yourself. He expanded the view and consciously, very deliberately used communal activity, communal meditation, communal chanting, communal work as a spiritual method, and I feel there's great blessings and great benefit that comes from that. One of the teachings I've been contemplating a lot in the last few years is it's not very often that the Buddha talks about the origins or the sources of ignorance, of avijja. And the one particular discourse in the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of the Tens, Sutta number 61, if you're interested. It's called the Avijja Sutta, or the Ignorance Sutta. And it starts off by the Buddha saying, there is no, you can't speak about the precise origin of ignorance. You can't say that at this point there was no ignorance in the universe and then ignorance appeared. So that you can't, that no beginning point of ignorance, of avijja, is discernible. But there are certainly supportive conditions. There is the things that support and help ignorance to come into being. And it starts off, and he uses this image, just like when the rain falls upon the hills, very appropriate for this season in Mendocino, and the rain falls upon the hills and forms into little pools, and then the pools form into little streams, the streams form into bigger streams, the bigger streams join and form small rivers and the big rivers flow to the sea, and then the sea is filled up by that water. So too, ignorance is filled up. There are contributory causes that fill up ignorance. And it starts off with him saying, if you don't draw close to good people, the sapurisa sangseva, if you don't draw close, if you don't have good spiritual companions, then you don't create the opportunities to listen to helpful, beneficial teachings. If you don't listen to beneficial teachings, sadhamma samana, then faith doesn't arise. If faith doesn't arise, then there is no support for wise reflection. If there isn't any wise reflection, there's no support for mindfulness and clear comprehension, sati sampajanya. Without mindfulness and clear comprehension, there isn't a support for what's called indriya samvara, or the restraint of the senses. Essentially what that means is you live reactively rather than responsively. So if something happens that you like, you chase after it. Something happens that you dislike, you contend against it. You hate it or fear it and run away from it. So rather than being restrained in the senses, you're reactive in relationship to what you see and hear and smell and taste and touch. Then when there's a lack of sense restraint, then that gives rise to unskillful acts of body, speech and mind. When there's unskillful actions of body, speech and mind, that feeds, that contributes to the 5 hindrances of sense desire, ill will, dullness, restlessness and doubt. And then as the 5 hindrances are developed and they grow and strengthen, then that's what fills up avijja. That strengthens and kind of provides the fuel source for avijja. And then in his usual thorough way, he says, but in exactly the same way that as the rain falling on the mountains and filling the pools and streams and rivers and so on, said knowledge and liberation, true knowledge and liberation are also filled up by contributory causes. They're supported by contributory causes. And first one on the list is, if you draw close to good people, there's sapurisa sangseva, if you draw close to well-rounded, good-hearted people. And as I think I said this a few days ago, I consider the kind of people who want to go and spend time or live in a monastery are generally sapurisa, at least sapurisa types, if not a guaranteed kind of fully accomplished sapurisa. But sat means good, purisa means person, so a good person, a well-rounded person, a noble-hearted person. Drawing close to good people then creates the opportunity to listen to helpful, skillful, liberating teachings, sadhamma samana. If you listen to the good teachings, if you put your attention onto skillful spiritual advice, then faith arises, strengthens the quality of faith, confidence. And then with the strengthening of confidence and spiritual commitment, faith, then that supports the quality of wise reflection. With wise reflection, that strengthens mindfulness and full awareness, mindfulness and clear comprehension. As that develops, then so it naturally supports and feeds. It's the fuel for indriya samvara. The mind is more responsive rather than reactive. When you experience something that you like, you like it. It's pleasant, but you don't find yourselves compelled to chase after it. Something that you dislike, that is painful or irritating, you don't contend against it. You know that that's painful or uncomfortable. So we live responsively rather than reactively. When there is that responsivity, then that supports wholesome actions of body, speech and mind. And with that's wholesome actions of body, speech and mind support the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The development of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, as they are cultivated and fulfilled, they bring about the 7 factors of enlightenment, and as they are cultivated and fulfilled, then that brings about true knowledge and liberation. And so that the ocean of knowledge and liberation is filled up through those wholesome, beneficial streams. So I feel this is, and I've emphasized this a lot in recent years, because I feel it's a very skillful, helpful teaching. But if we want ignorance to be deprived of its fuel, draw close to good people. It makes a difference who you spend your time with. What do you talk about when you're with other people? What do you put your attention on? And so that a monastery is a kind of a collective for sapurisa, for good-hearted people, and it's designed to support the wholesome and liberating, beneficial qualities that we all have as human beings. It's designed literally to bring out the best in us, to help us to cultivate our most noble and, say, wise and wholesome qualities. So when we go forth from the household life, then it's also going into the sort of Sapurisa collective, I would say, and that is something that benefits us as individuals, but also because it brings out the best in us, then the best in us then helps, is a contributory, it contributes and benefits the lives of those around us. It's an opportunity for us not to just be supported, but to support others, and that's a very, I say, a very powerful and direct cause of joy and peace in our own hearts as well. So I've been very, also my time here at Abhayagiri is drawing to a close. This auspicious going forth of Venerable Obasi this evening is a happy coincidence, the coming together of those conditions. So, but I have greatly delighted in being amongst this particular collection of Sapurisa, and these good people, and reconnecting with this place. I have a history of 25 years-ish, 25 and a bit, since Abhayagiri hatched, so it's very delightful to see the place flourishing and in such good health. And as Ajahn was saying, my plan is to be setting off back to England in a couple of days' time. We go down to the Bay Area early tomorrow, and then one night in the Bay Area, and then I should be flying out on Thursday. So I wish to express my gratitude for your good company, and to be very say beautifully welcomed and looked after here. My trusty Upatak, Venerable Jyoti Manto, ever present when he's needed and not present when he's not needed. Not to be flattering him in public, but I will. A mark of a good Upatak is to be helpful, but not to be too helpful. So to be paying attention and helping out in all ways. And the other day, Lumpur Pasanna was talking about hospitality as part of the Mangala Sutta. I think that is also, I felt I've been very hospitably welcomed and looked after extremely well. So, sadhu anumodana for everyone's say effort in making my stay very, very beneficial. And also, this morning I invited Ajahn to come and visit Amaravati. So now you have to come because everyone knows about it. It's on camera as well. So since he's never had the chance to visit, or has been able to visit the monasteries in Europe, and I wanted to make the occasion, so I've invited Ajahn to come spend a couple of weeks at Amaravati and the other monasteries in England next year. I sincerely hope that works out. Ewan.
Mayang Dhammakataya sadhu karandadamase sadhu 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 anumodam. Okay, we can do our formal leave taking. And first Ajahn Amaro will pay respects to Lungor Pasano.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Mahatere pamadena dvaratayena katang sabanga paradang kamatame bante. Mahatere pamadena dvaratayena katang sabanga paradang kamatame bante. Mahatere pamadena dvaratayena katang sabanga paradang kamatame bante. Aham kamami te apime kamitabam. Kamami bante. So vatamando sukito viruho kunpasasane. Aroko sukito ho visahasambe. Hinyate sante buddha. Palapata vanje kananchayan balam. Arahanta nanchate je narakan banda. Visampatso. Thank you for coming. Thank you for spending time with us. It's been wonderful.
Pleasure was all mine. Great to get the band back together again.
Reunion tour.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Mahatere pamadena dvaratayena katang sabang aparadang kamatuno bante. Mahatere pamadena dvaratayena katang sabang aparadang kamatuno bante. Mahatere pamadena dvaratayena katang sabang aparadang kamatuno bante.
Aham kamami tumehi pime kamitabang.
Kamama bante.
Chitang varitang tumam kipam eva samijatu. Sabre parentu sankapa. Chando panaraso yata manijo. Tiraso yata sabityo vivajantu. Sambarogo vinasatu. Mate bhavatwantarayo. Sukirikayukopava. Ambiva sirisa nichang vudhapachahino. Chataro dhamma vadanti. Ayuvano sukang balang.
Sadhu.
This is that plum branch I was showing you.
Oh wow!
And
It changed.
it changed, and there's a little, it's hard to see, but there's an Amaravati logo there, so, and you can put something in it, relic relics or whatever.
Yes, I was offered some relics today.
I didn't
amazing.
quite get the grain to match up, but so there's manzanita also,
It's a
recollection.
it's a perfect checkerboard fit.
Yeah, exactly. Recollection of a Abhayagiri.
Well, magnificent.
And I'll pack that up for you tonight. So I
Okay.
have packing and wrapping for it.
Excellent indeed.
Mm.
Well, sadhu. Thank you. Treasures of the forest. As I was holding that, the fragrance of the forest, Abhayagiri's aromas of the bay and the fir trees and so on, filling my senses. So to take a piece of Abhayagiri with me.
So
Sadhu Anumodana to you all. I've memorized all of your names now. It's changed while I go away. So very, very happy to be here. So thank you so much.
great.
Impressed you found the time to do that.
Yeah, that
Boring
was
hours between 1 and 3 in the morning.
that was my work period this morning.
We share blessings or Sovatalado?
Yeah, I think share whatever Ajahn Kasapo comes up with.
Usually we do Sovatalado for ordination.
So Atalado. I think probably sharing verses of sharing an aspiration, page 33.
May my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life, may they soon attain the threefold bliss, and realize the deathless, through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. Sangha